Why didn't Chris Kaba just get out of the car? This would have saved all of this. A lot of people have rallied behind Chris Kaba, including Black Lives Matter and all those, saying that this was all because he was black. I'm afraid to say on this instance, I don't think so. Now, Chris Kaba was shot dead by police. A lot of people asking whether he actually deserved it or not. In my view, no. Nobody deserves to be shot. Nobody really deserves to die unnecessarily. But the question is, with what happened to Chris Kaba, was that a lawful killing? Because a lot of people are saying that actually this was motivated by the fact that he was black. Reports say that Chris Kaba was unarmed. Well, that depends on whether you believe a car is actually a weapon. Because in my view, he was and he wasn't. I mean, if I drive my car at people, then I am using my car as a weapon. So the question is, do you believe that Chris Kaba was using his car like a weapon? On September the 11th, the two planes that flew into the Twin Towers were used as weapons. They were misused. They were used in a manner that was designed to cause harm, and it did. And thousands of people were killed, including everybody on each of those planes. So what was Chris Kaba doing? Well, if you looked at the video, you will see a car that is trapped between two police cars, pushing back and forth, trying to get out of a tiny, tiny space. Now, here, police officers were caught around this car, and they were trying to stop this car from escaping. They were trying to get the person who was inside this car out. Let's be honest here. A car not only is a heavy weapon, it could also be an explosive, whereas a gun is a gun. But the bottom line is, was that force equal? Was it necessary? Well, in the case of the officers involved, the officer who fired the shot clearly thought that his other fellow officer's life was in danger because of the way Chris Kaba was driving this car. So if you drive a car at people with flagrant disregard for those humans and the human life, then your car is absolutely a weapon. And unfortunately for Chris Kaba, his car was absolutely a weapon. And on top of that, unfortunately, the reason the car was stopped was because there was a suspicion that this car was up to no good, because the car had nights previously been involved in some sort of shooting. That's why the car was stopped in the first instance. So Chris Kaba was driving this car that had been used in a shooting only days before and had been trapped by police and was buffing forward and back. Police officers were potentially in his way. I know the space in front of the car the police refer to as the triangle of death, and the officer who fired the shot felt that his fellow officers were in that area and felt that he needed to act on it. Otherwise, he was worried that he could kill, Chris Kaba could kill his fellow officers. Now, Chris Kaba was no stranger to a gun, although, to be fair, the officers didn't know it was him in the car. Chris Kaba, quite a little while previously, was caught firing shots at someone in a nightclub. He shot the person once inside the club and then chased the person out and shot them once outside the club. CCTV footage emerged showing Chris Kaba doing that. However, I think it was right that this information was not exposed to the jury for the trial that was coming up before he was killed by police. Otherwise, it would have absolutely prejudiced it, and Chris Kaba would not have had a fair trial. As I said, the officer who shot him did not know anything about Chris Kaba. In fact, he didn't realize it was Chris Kaba in the car. All he had to go on was the fact that this car had been used in some sort of shooting incident, so he fired the shot. One shot that killed Chris Kaba pretty much instantly because his injuries were unsurvivable. So what would you have done in that space, in that time, in that moment? Why didn't Chris Kaba just get out of the car? This would have saved all of this. Now, a lot of people have rallied behind Chris Kaba. Including Black Lives Matter and all those, saying that this was all because he was black. I'm afraid to say on this instance, I don't think so. This was not because Chris Kaba was black. This was because Chris Kaba was creating a situation that was putting officers at risk of death, and Chris Kaba would not get out of a car that had been involved in a shooting. People often say, well, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Or why didn't they shoot the tyres? Clearly, those saying that haven't seen the video, because Chris Kaba's legs were not available to the officer at that moment, and shooting the tyres would not have made much difference. Chris Kaba could have still gone forward and back. So the officer argues that his fellow officers were in a position in that triangle of death where it was either them or Chris Kaba. So that is why the shot was fired. It literally has nothing to do with the fact that he's black. Yes, some people might say that there is structural or institutional racism. In my view, this is just simply a way of excusing people, individuals, for taking responsibility for their own actions. So if I'm in a group of people and they're all being racist and a load of people are all being racist, but I'm not, and I go along with it, I'm part of the structure. But those people are individuals being racist, so they should be pulled up on their individual behavior. The bottom line is this: Chris Kaba was frightened. Chris Kaba was clearly frightened, and so were the officers. Because underneath all of this big macho machismo is a boy who loves his mum, who loves his sisters, who loves his brothers. Chris Kaba no doubt loved his family, and his family loved him. And the same with the officers. And whilst it is really sad that a life had to be extinguished in this manner, I'm afraid this literally has nothing to do with the fact that he's black. He should have come out of the car with his hands up or made no sudden movements, knowing full well that he was in a situation here. But he didn't do any of that. He decided to try and ram the police cars either side of him to try and escape. And unfortunately for him, that car, whether he knew it or not, had been involved in the shooting only nights previously, and the officers around him were armed. And in order to disarm him, because the car, in my view, is a weapon, the shot was fired. Chris chose to use his car as a weapon. He chose to do that. It was his choice. So, in my view, whilst it is incredibly sad, this has nothing to do with race. And maybe the officers reacted more quickly because they saw a black man. I don't know, but I don't even think that you could answer that, because the situation that Chris Kaba had put himself and the officers in was life or death. Now, lots of people rallied in support of Chris Kaba, but wisely the information about his criminal past was withheld, so the jury would give him a fair trial. As soon as that emerged, a load of those people decided they're not going to support him because, frankly, he lived a life of crime, and frankly, they didn't want to put themselves out for him. I understand. I get that. His mother rightly sought to keep that sort of information private, and it was right that Chris Kaba got that trial if there was any question surrounding what happened that night. But the thing is this: after what happened, the officer was named. Why on earth did the judge name the officer? He shouldn't have, and it will deter anyone from even wanting to join the police, and in particular the armed police, if they know that if there's any question of what happened, they'll be named and there's likely to be a bounty on their head. A lot of officers have put down their arms, and frankly, I don't blame them. But the question is this: is what happened to Chris Kaba fair? Well, in my view, Chris Kaba is responsible for Chris Kaba's behaviour. And unfortunately for him, he behaved in a manner where his car was a weapon and an officer decided to fire the shot to save his friends. I don't know which of us would have done anything differently. But that's my take on this. What do you think?